If you grew up in the 1950s, you remember this. What if you could step back into a time when doors were left unlocked, milk was left on the porch, and Sunday nights meant gathering round the TV as a family? If you grew up in the 1950s, these weren't just memories, they were your everyday life. Let's take a heartfelt walk back. Drive-in restaurants. Ever wonder where freedom had a soundtrack and French fries came with friendship? In the 1950s, drive-in restaurants weren't just places to eat, they were the beating heart of teen life. As summer heat rolled in, parking lots buzzed with chrome-finned Chevys and the rhythmic clatter of roller skates on concrete. Car hops in crisp uniforms glided between cars, balancing trays of sizzling cheeseburgers, thick milkshakes, and fries so crisp you could hear the crunch. For teenagers just tasting the thrill of independence behind the wheel, these neon-lit hubs were sacred ground, part diner, part dance floor, and always full of stories waiting to unfold beneath the starlit sky. Polio Vaccine. In a decade shadowed by the silent terror of paralysis, one scientific breakthrough offered a nation its breath back. When Dr. Jonas Salk's polio vaccine was announced in 1955, it wasn't just medicine. It was a moment of collective hope. Just 3 years earlier, over 50,000 children had fallen ill in a single summer. Playgrounds had emptied, and swimming pools had gone still. But with the vaccine's arrival came a tidal wave of relief. And soon, millions of American school children were lining up to receive it. It marked the beginning of a medical triumph and the end of a fear that had gripped a generation. Soda fountains and sock hops. There was nothing quite like the buzz of a soda fountain on a Friday night, where cherry cokes fizzed, jukeboxes crooned Elvis, and teenagers shared banana splits with wide grins and sticky fingers. These chrome-lined counters weren't just for floats, they were a front-row seat to budding crushes and teenage daydreams. And when the music followed them to the gym, out came the socks, literally. At sock hops, shoes stayed off and the rhythm kicked in. From the hand jive to the twist, these dances weren't just moves, they were freedom, rebellion, and joy, spun across a polished wooden floor under the shimmer of a disco ball. Sunday night shows. Do you remember those Sunday nights when the world seemed to slow down and the soft hum of a black and white television drew the whole family close? Back then, living rooms turned into front row seats for the Ed Sullivan Show, where stars were born and dreams felt within reach. Laughter from I Love Lucy, the whimsy of Howdy Doody, and the grit of Gunsmoke made every Sunday feel like a small celebration. As the night ended, so did the broadcast. Stations signed off with the Star-Spangled Banner, flickering into static, leaving behind the quiet comfort of shared moments and the warm glow of home. Which memory from the 1950s brings back the warmest feelings for you? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Transistor radios and rock and roll. Freedom had a new sound in the 50s, and it crackled through the speaker of a palm-sized transistor radio. Suddenly, music wasn't tied to the living room. It rode in your back pocket, blasting Chuck Berry riffs from a park bench or the bleachers behind school. These sleek, battery-powered gadgets gave teenagers their first taste of personal space, tuned not just to the latest hits, but to their very identity. Whether you were getting your ducktail trimmed at the corner barbershop or sneaking a listen under the covers, rock and roll pulsed in the background, raw, loud, and unapologetically alive. TV westerns and cowboy play. Every frontier had its legends, but in the 1950s, they came beaming through black and white television sets, six-shooters blazing and justice riding fast on horseback. Shows like Gunsmoke, The Lone Ranger, and Roy Rogers didn't just entertain, they sparked a national obsession. Boys dashed through backyards in cowboy hats and fringe vests, holsters slung low and cap guns popping, their imaginations galloping through dusty towns and outlaw hideouts. The line between screen and sidewalk blurred, as playgrounds transformed into wild prairies. Fueled by the golden age of TV westerns, a generation learned to chase adventure, defend the innocent, and tip their hat like a true American hero. The Mickey Mouse Club. What was more exciting than hearing that cheerful jingle and seeing those big mouse ears pop up on screen right after school? When the Mickey Mouse Club first aired in 1955, it wasn't just a show. It was a daily celebration of music, friendship, and imagination. Hosted by the ever-smiling Jimmy Dodd and his band of spirited Mouseketeers like Annette Funicello and Bobby Burgess, the program filled American homes with laughter and heart. With themed weekdays and catchy songs, it gave kids something to look forward to, day after day. For many, it wasn't just television. It was childhood in motion. Drive-in movies and ice cream trucks. Warm summer nights once shimmered with headlights and laughter as families rolled into drive-in theaters beneath a canvas of stars. Engines hushed, windows down, and radios softly humming. They settled in with popcorn and pajamas, ready for Hollywood magic to flicker across giant outdoor screens. Just as unforgettable was the sweet thrill of the ice cream truck's jingle drifting through quiet suburban streets. Often a good humor or Mr. Softy truck, it was more than dessert. It was a ritual. Barefoot kids would dash inside, breathless and hopeful, clutching change in sweaty palms, chasing cones and dreams under the golden haze of dusk. Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. The 1950s dazzled in spotlight and sequins, and no two stars burned brighter than Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. With a whisper-soft voice and a gaze that could silence a room, Marilyn embodied Hollywood allure. Her platinum curls, red lips, and hourglass figure became the standard of cinematic beauty. Meanwhile, Elvis shook the world from the waist down. With his signature pompadour and electrifying swagger, he gave rock and roll its pulse and youth its anthem. Together, they didn't just entertain. They redefined fame. They were more than performers. They were myths in the making, icons etched into the fabric of American memory. Encyclopedia Britannica Salesmen. Have you ever watched knowledge arrive on your doorstep, carried not by a screen, but by a man in a neatly pressed suit with a leather-bound catalog under his arm? In the 1950s, the Encyclopedia Britannica wasn't just a set of books. It was a quiet promise of learning, ambition, and upward mobility. Sold door-to-door by well-spoken salesmen, these volumes were an investment, often paid for in monthly installments. And just as families neared the final payment, a new edition would emerge, glossier, thicker, more modern, tempting them once more. It was a ritual of progress, deeply woven into the rhythm of American aspiration. Do you have a funny story or unforgettable memory from your childhood days in the 1950s? I'd love to hear it. Retro merchandise. You've made it this far down memory lane, but the journey doesn't have to end here. Tucked just beyond this video is something special, a curated collection of retro-inspired treasures that echo the spirit of the 1950s. From classic designs to nostalgic keepsakes, each item was made to capture the charm and character of a bygone era. If your heart beats a little faster for Formica patterns, soda fountain fonts, or the sparkle of vintage Americana, you're going to want to take a look. Just follow the link in the description and keep the story going, one keepsake at a time. Candy culture. What's sweeter than the memory of sticky fingers, bulging pockets, and a paper sack full of penny candy from the corner store? In the magical world of 1950s childhood, candy was more than just a treat. It was a ticket to fun, fantasy, and friendship. Kids puffed on chalky candy cigarettes, crunched on Necco wafers, and sucked the fire out of atomic fireballs like tiny daredevils. Charleston chews stretched with every bite. Bazooka gum came with a comic strip, and root beer barrels rolled around in back pockets until recess. Even candy buttons clung to paper like tiny sugar jewels. Back then, One shiny coin could buy pure joy, and maybe a little mischief too. Christmas traditions and toys. There's a special kind of magic that lingers in memories of a 1950s Christmas. Soft carols on the radio, the scent of pine filling the living room, and a tree shimmering with silver tinsel that danced in the light. Families would gather to unwrap wooden toys and cast-iron train sets, their wheels clicking gently as they circled the base of the tree. Children dreamed of snow-covered hills and wooden sleds, hand-painted and passed down through generations. In those simpler times, even the smallest gift felt grand. Traditions weren't just festive, they were sacred rituals of togetherness, joy, and childlike wonder that still echo in hearts today. Department store Christmas windows. Downtown sidewalks sparkled beneath strings of colored lights, but it was the department store windows that truly stole the show. During the 1950s, places like Macy's, Lord & Taylor, and Marshall Field's turned their storefronts into enchanting holiday tableaus. Miniature trains puffed along snowy tracks, toy soldiers marched in unison, and scenes from fairy tales came to life behind glass. These weren't just displays, they were seasonal spectacles, lovingly crafted with mechanical animation and artistic flair. Families bundled in wool coats strolled past in awe, turning each visit into a treasured tradition. For many, it wasn't officially Christmas until the windows came alive. Mail order catalogs. Is there anything more magical than flipping through a dog-eared Christmas catalog on a chilly afternoon, dreaming with every turned page? In the 1950s, America, mail order catalogs from Sears, JCPenney, and Montgomery Ward weren't just shopping tools, they were windows into wonder. With vibrant illustrations and glossy pages, these seasonal books brought the spirit of the holidays right to your doorstep, especially for rural families far from department stores. Children eagerly circled toys, board games, and bicycles in bold red pen, their imaginations running wild. Year after year, those catalogs became part of the holiday ritual, symbols of hope, excitement, and the simple joy of wishing. If this video brought back memories, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more trips down memory lane. S&H Green Stamps. Nothing brought a family together quite like spreading out a pile of S&H Green Stamps across the kitchen table. Earned with every grocery run or fill-up at the gas station, these little green rewards were carefully licked, stuck into booklets, and counted with pride. Kids often helped their parents paste each one in, dreaming of the day the book would be full. Then came the fun part, flipping through colorful catalogs to pick out something special, maybe a new toaster or a set of dishes. It wasn't just about the free stuff. It was about working toward a goal, together, one stamp at a time, with patience, laughter, and shared excitement. Gold bond stamps. Back in the 1950s, it wasn't just groceries that families brought home from the store. It was anticipation, neatly stacked in tiny golden stamps. Gold bond stamps were more than a rewards program. They were a ritual. After every shopping trip or gas station stop, moms would hand over the day's bounty of stamps, and kids eagerly took their places at the kitchen table. With tongues out and booklets open, they'd help paste each one in, dreaming of the toaster, the toy, or the new set of dishes waiting at the end. It was slow, simple magic, one stamp at a time, with mom by your side and hope in every page. 1950s, family roles. Can you still picture the quiet rhythm of a 1950s morning, the scent of coffee, the hum of a radio, and the sound of Dad's footsteps as he left for work in the family's lone car? Life back then followed a familiar and comforting pattern. Fathers were often the sole breadwinners, heading off to the office or the factory, while mothers tended the home with steady hands, cooking meals from scratch, folding laundry, and minding the children with love and patience. Though idealized on TV, this domestic routine was very real for many families. It brought a sense of order and warmth that shaped childhoods, dinner tables, and the very rhythm of post-war American life. Saddle shoes and poodle skirts. Beneath the classroom lights and soda shop jukebox glow, saddle shoes tapped out the soundtrack of 1950s teen life. Sleek with their signature black and white contrast, they were polished to perfection and often worn with bobby socks for an extra pop of charm. But it was the poodle skirt that truly stole the spotlight. A swirl of colorful felt, cinched at the waist and embroidered with playful designs like leaping poodles or swinging records. These full-circle skirts moved with rhythm and grace, echoing the joyful energy of sock hops and school dances. Together, they defined an era of youthful flair, turning everyday sidewalks into runways of mid-century style. Home sewing and handmade clothes. The gentle hum of a Singer sewing machine was once the heartbeat of many American homes. In the 1950s, with store-bought fashion still a luxury for many, mothers across the country lovingly stitched clothing for their families at the kitchen table. Patterns were pinned, fabrics carefully cut, and hems sewn with care, each garment a product of both necessity and devotion. Home sewing wasn't just a practical skill, it was a labor of love passed down through generations, often inspired by colorful McCalls or simplicity patterns. From Sunday dresses to play shorts, these handmade clothes held warmth that no store tag could replicate. And in every stitch lived a story of patience, creativity, and quiet maternal pride. If you're still watching right now, comment yes, so we know you're with us. Rotary phones. Can you still hear the gentle click, click, click of the rotary dial turning under your fingertips? In the 1950s, that familiar sound marked the start of every phone call, often from the one and only phone in the house, usually parked on a hallway table or kitchen counter. For many, it wasn't even private. Party lines were common, meaning you might lift the receiver only to overhear your neighbor's conversation. Calling a friend or local shop meant flipping through thick, dog-eared pages of the household phone book. But despite its limitations, that rotary phone connected families, carried teenage giggles, and brought news from miles away, all at a pace that felt more human, more deliberate, and somehow more meaningful. Outdoor adventures. Nothing beat the thrill of flying down the sidewalk on your bike, baseball card fluttering in the spokes, sounding like a mini motorcycle as you ruled the block. Childhood in the 1950s was lived outdoors, barefoot, sun-kissed, and joyfully loud. We played kick the can until the streetlights came on, climbed trees like little explorers, and turned empty lots into imaginary kingdoms. When we weren't outside, we were building Lincoln log cabins or molding bright blobs of Play-Doh into masterpieces. Hula hoops spun around our waists, and Mr. Potato Head always wore a goofy grin. Indoors, Scrabble battles and old-maid giggles filled the room. It was a golden age of simple toys, endless imagination, and pure, unfiltered fun. Western Flyer bicycles. Few childhood memories shine brighter than the day you first rode your very own Western Flyer. With its chrome fenders gleaming in the sun and sturdy steel frame humming over sidewalks, this bike wasn't just a gift, it was a passport to freedom. Sold by Western Auto and crafted by trusted American manufacturers like Murray and Huffy, the Western Flyer combined style, durability, and affordability. For countless kids in the 1950s, it marked a rite of passage, often appearing beside the Christmas tree with a big red bow. Whether racing friends, running errands, or simply exploring the block, the Western Flyer became a beloved companion on countless two-wheeled adventures that defined the golden age of growing up. Radio Flyer wagons and roller skates. What if your first taste of freedom came not from a car, but from 4 squeaky wheels and a red metal wagon? In the 1950s, the Radio Flyer wasn't just a toy, it was a childhood workhorse, ready to haul soda bottles, little brothers, or a load of dreams. Kids zoomed down sidewalks like mini delivery drivers, inventing jobs and adventures on the fly. And then there were those clunky metal roller skates with the adjustable key, tightened over keds and often followed by a tumble or two. You could spot a true skate veteran by the band-aids on their knees. Whether you were gliding, clattering, or coasting, wheels meant one thing: you ruled your block. The Fuller Brush Man. Back in the days when doors were left unlocked and front porches saw friendly faces daily, the arrival of the Fuller Brush Man felt as familiar as the morning paper. With a crisp smile and a case full of bristled wonders, he wasn't just selling cleaning tools. He was part of a traveling tradition. These gentlemen, often dressed neatly and armed with free sample brushes, knew every crack in the sidewalk of their route and could polish a stove or a sink with practiced flair. Housewives trusted them, kids watched in awe, and homes gleamed just a little brighter. In many ways, the Fuller Brush Man swept his way into American folklore, one doorstep at a time. Did this bring back great memories? Let us know by commenting nostalgia. Davy Crockett and Coonskin caps. What happens when a television series turns an American folk hero into the ultimate childhood role model? In the mid-1950s, Davy Crockett fever swept across the nation like a wildfire. Thanks to Walt Disney's wildly popular miniseries, kids from coast to coast donned coonskin caps and transformed their backyards into the untamed frontier. Fess Parker's portrayal of the legendary frontiersman ignited imaginations and inspired playground expeditions into make-believe wilderness. Whether reenacting heroic battles or humming the Ballad of Davy Crockett, children found freedom, grit, and wonder in Crockett's wild spirit. It was more than just dress-up. It was a rite of passage, stitched into the cultural fabric of 1950s America. 3D comics. On gray, drizzly afternoons, something extraordinary would happen with just the flick of a comic book cover. In the 1950s, a wave of wonder swept through American homes as 3D comics burst onto the scene, turning rainy day boredom into a dazzling escape. Titles like Mighty Mouse leapt off the pages, literally, thanks to space-age red and blue glasses tucked inside. These weren't just stories. They were adventures that danced off the paper and into your imagination. Developed by artists like Joe Kubert, this brief yet brilliant trend enchanted children, blending mid-century innovation with timeless childhood wonder. Even today, the magic of those pages still lingers, like a secret waiting to be rediscovered. Keene and paper dolls. Back in the 1950s, little hands carefully cut out paper dolls while big dreams danced through young imaginations. Among the most beloved was Keene, a comic book heroine who wasn't just fashionable, she defined glamour. Dubbed the Queen of Pin-Ups, Katie graced the pages of Archie comics, dazzling fans with her charm and ever-changing wardrobe. What made her truly special, though, was the way she invited girls into her world. Readers could mail in their own outfit designs, hoping to see their creativity come to life in print. It wasn't just play. It was art, expression, and a joyful spark of inspiration that still lingers decades later. Mimeographs and beauty gadgets. Few things say 1950s like the scent of freshly cranked mimeograph ink drifting through a classroom on test day, its lavender hue and oily aroma etched into the memory of every school kid. Back then, teachers relied on these hand-cranked machines to churn out worksheets one turn at a time. Meanwhile, in the realm of beauty and wellness, women stepped into vibrating belt machines that claimed to melt away inches with a jiggly promise. These curious contraptions, part science fiction, part salon novelty, offered hope wrapped in elastic straps. Though the belts eventually fell out of fashion, they remain a quirky reminder of a decade filled with wild ideas, mechanical wonders, and the ever-present desire for self-improvement. Hobby shops. Have you ever felt the quiet thrill of entering a shop where every shelf seemed to whisper a new adventure? In the 1950s, weekend visits to the local hobby shop were a cherished ritual for countless American kids. These cozy little stores offered more than just toys. They were packed with Lionel train sets, towers of model kits, balsa wood gliders, tiny paint pots, and stacks of comic books. With just a bit of pocket change, you could walk out with a world of possibility in your hands. Whether it was crafting a miniature plane or carefully assembling a battleship, these moments stirred young imaginations and inspired the kind of focused joy only a Saturday afternoon could bring. Weekly readers in school. Friday afternoons brought a special kind of excitement to classrooms across America as teachers passed out copies of My Weekly Reader, fresh off the press. This beloved educational newspaper opened windows to the world, captivating students with lively articles, fun puzzles, and delightful cartoons. More than simply reading practice, these little newspapers encouraged kids to dream bigger, teaching them about fascinating places, historic events, and current affairs, carefully crafted to educate without overwhelming young readers. With each flip of the crisp pages and that unmistakable smell of newsprint, children felt connected to a broader world, their imaginations and curiosity expanding, leaving lasting memories that still bring a nostalgic smile today. School picture. When was the last time you dusted off an old box of memories and stumbled upon your school picture neatly lined up with classmates and your teacher standing proudly by your side? Back in those simpler times, picture day felt almost ceremonial. Children carefully combed their hair, wore freshly ironed clothes, and practiced their best smiles. The flash from the photographer's bulky camera captured more than just a moment. It preserved friendships, youthful innocence, and small-town charm. These treasured photographs weren't merely snapshots. They were milestones, placed carefully into albums or stored away like hidden gems, quietly waiting to spark smiles, laughter, and perhaps even a bittersweet tear of nostalgia, decades later. The Fluffernutter. Forget fancy gourmet lunches. Every kid knew the real lunchtime superstar was hidden deep within their trusty brown paper bag. The mighty Fluffernutter was the undisputed sandwich champion of school cafeterias everywhere. A sticky, sweet creation, lovingly layered with peanut butter and fluffy marshmallow cream. If your mom was feeling especially creative or health-conscious, she'd sneak in thin slices of ripe banana, adding a fruity flair to the marshmallowy delight. Half the fun was peeling your fingers apart after devouring each messy bite, savoring that sugary rush. This humble yet irresistible sandwich quickly became the iconic taste of 1950s childhood, perfectly blending nostalgia, humor, and a dash of delicious chaos. Milk delivery. In the quiet of early morning, the gentle clip-clop of the milkman's horse echoed softly down the sleepy street, blending with the rhythmic clink of glass milk bottles set carefully on each doorstep. Back then, fresh milk arrived daily, right at your front door, a simple luxury you eagerly anticipated. Occasionally, nestled among the regular deliveries, you'd find a special treat, rich, creamy chocolate milk, a delightful surprise that felt like a holiday in a bottle. These visits from the friendly milkman were more than convenience. They were comforting rituals woven gently into the tapestry of everyday life, capturing the essence of a slower, sweeter era, still cherished deeply within the heart. Church and closed stores. Did you feel it? Those quiet Sundays of the 1950s held a gentle reverence as towns across America paused for rest and reflection. Shops along Main Street closed their doors, observing the sacred rhythm of worship and tranquility. Families donned their Sunday best, filling church pews with hushed whispers and hymnals opened in humble hands. Neighbors leaned on neighbors in moments of need, knocking softly on doors to borrow sugar or milk rather than breaking the serene stillness by driving to a store. It was a day reserved for community, kindness, and the comfort of tradition, a peaceful pause from life's busy rhythms. House calls. The comforting sight of the family doctor arriving at the doorstep, black medical bag in hand, was a familiar scene in many American neighborhoods during the 1950s. Particularly in small towns, doctors routinely visited their patients' homes, carefully examining the sick in the warmth of their bedrooms and prescribing treatments right at their bedside. Trusted and respected, these community physicians often became family friends, listening patiently to concerns beyond medical issues and offering reassuring advice. Although the popularity of house calls had already peaked decades earlier, these personal visits remained an essential and beloved medical practice in countless communities through the 50s, symbolizing a simpler, more intimate era of healthcare, a time when doctors knew patients by name and sometimes even accepted produce or firewood as payment. This close, compassionate relationship fostered a strong sense of security and trust, deeply cherished by those who experienced it. Growing up in the 1960s means you remember this. If you grew up in the 1960s, there are things burned into your memory, sounds, smells, little moments that no one today would ever understand. It was a time of wonder, change, and simple joys that slipped quietly into history. Let's take a walk back to the decade that shaped a generation and still whispers to us today. Convenience meals, Swanson TV dinners. There was something oddly comforting about the soft crinkle of a foil tray sliding into the oven. I still remember Sunday evenings at my grandparents' house, Dad in his recliner, the TV humming, and the smell of Swanson's fried chicken slowly filling the room. In the 1950s and 60s, Swanson revolutionized dinner time with their frozen meals, turning leftover turkey into a nationwide phenomenon. With neat compartments for meat, sides, and that molten, hot brownie tucked in the corner, it felt like having a personal banquet. These meals weren't just convenient, they were part of a cultural shift. For the first time, families could gather around the television without sacrificing dinner. And somehow, that made even the simplest nights feel special. The Batman TV show. Saturday evenings at our house meant one thing: Batman was on, and nothing short of a power outage could pull us away. I'd race to the TV, still in my school socks, just in time to catch the theme song blaring its famous "Na, na, 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 Batman." The show, which first aired in 1966, wasn't just a superhero story. It was a splash of color, camp, and cliffhangers that glued America to the screen twice a week. Adam West's deadpan delivery, the wild villains, and those comic book fight words popping up mid-battle made every episode feel like a mini-adventure. Looking back, it wasn't just entertainment. It was a shared rhythm of family, routine, and pure childhood delight. Cold War anxieties, bomb shelters, and drills. Do you remember the sound of that school bell followed by the words, "Duck and cover"? Back in the early 1960s, fear of nuclear war wasn't just in the headlines. It lived in our classrooms and even in our basements. I still recall crouching under my wooden desk, hands over my head, heart pounding, as if plywood could save us. My dad, ever the handyman, spent a whole weekend lining our cellar with canned beans and bottled water after President Kennedy's televised warning. It all felt so serious then, yet to us kids, there was something oddly thrilling about pretending we were secret agents hiding from danger. Looking back now, it's a powerful reminder of just how deeply the Cold War shaped an entire generation. The space race, astronaut dreams, and the moon landing. Summer nights in the late 60s had a different kind of magic. We'd lie on the front lawn, my cousins and I, staring up at the stars, pretending we were astronauts waiting for countdown. At school, teachers rolled in bulky TVs so we could watch every launch. Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, as if we were part of history itself. The moon landing in '69 was more than just a broadcast. It was a moment that made the impossible feel real. When Neil Armstrong took that first step, even our quiet neighborhood erupted in cheers. Back then, space wasn't just a place, it was a dream. And for a brief time, every kid in America believed they just might get there. When you think of the 1960s, what's the very first image that comes to your mind? Baseball fever, the home run race and trading cards. If you were a kid in '61, you didn't need soap operas. Baseball gave you more drama than daytime TV. That summer, the country was glued to the Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle home run race, both chasing Babe Ruth's legendary record of 60 in a single season. Mantle was the golden boy, but an injury took him out of the race. Then, on October 1st, Maris smashed number 61 into the books and into history. Meanwhile, every kid on the block was flipping, trading, and chewing gum over Topps baseball cards. Holding a card with Mantle's face or Maris's stats felt like owning a piece of that magic. It wasn't just a sport, it was a fever that turned ballparks into cathedrals and bubblegum into currency. Fashion. Forward. Go-go boots. What girl didn't dream of clicking down the sidewalk in a pair of bright white go-go boots? By the mid-1960s, these shiny mid-calf wonders, first introduced by French designer André Courrèges, were strutting straight out of fashion magazines and into closets across America. With their low heels, glossy finish, and space-age style, go-go boots captured the bold, youthful energy of a generation on the move. Whether you were watching Hullabaloo or sneaking a look at your older sister getting ready for a school dance, those boots made a statement. They weren't just shoes, they were power, confidence, and a little bit of rebellion zipped up to your knees. And once you put them on, you didn't walk. You glided, with purpose and style. Backyard adventures, cap guns. Bang. You knew it was serious when the neighbor kid pulled out his Stallion .45. Back in the 50s and 60s, cap guns were the crown jewel of every backyard arsenal. Whether you were reenacting a Wild West showdown or chasing outlaws across the lawn, those toy revolvers delivered drama, complete with snap, smoke, and the smell of burnt paper caps. Inspired by the real percussion cap firearms of the 1800s, they became wildly popular after World War II, thanks in part to cowboy legends like Roy Rogers and Hopalong Cassidy. Companies like Mattel and Nichols crafted models so detailed they could fool a glance. And sure, your fingers got black and your ears rang. But for a few glorious minutes, you were the sheriff, the outlaw, and the hero all in one. Hometown TV. The Andy Griffith Show. The Andy Griffith Show, which first aired in 1960, wasn't just a sitcom. It was a slice of small-town Americana. With its gentle humor, warm life lessons, and unforgettable characters like Barney, Opie, and Aunt Bee, the show offered a sense of stability during a decade full of change. It reminded us of a time when problems were simpler and kindness went a long way. Its success sparked spin-offs like Gomer Pyle, USMC, and its reruns still resonate today. Watching it felt like sitting on the front porch with people you knew by heart, and somehow still do. Science fiction television, The Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits. What was it about a black and white screen that could leave you staring in silence long after the credits rolled? In the early 1960s, The Twilight Zone wasn't just television. It was a portal into the unknown, guided by the voice and vision of Rod Serling. Week after week, it delivered short, haunting tales packed with eerie twists and timeless moral lessons. Just a few years later, The Outer Limits arrived with its unforgettable opening line. "There is nothing wrong with your television set." Its stories leaned more into the monstrous and mysterious, often with dazzling effects and moody cinematography. Together, these shows didn't just entertain, they challenged how kids and adults saw the world, sparking imaginations and keeping nightlights on across America. Astronaut food, Tang and space food sticks. Who knew a glass of neon orange sugar water could make you feel like a space explorer? Tang wasn't just a drink, it was a rite of passage for any kid growing up in the 60s. Thanks to NASA packing it along for John Glenn's 1962 orbital mission, we all believed one sip could launch us straight to the moon. And don't get me started on space food sticks. They looked like brown crayons, chewed like rubber erasers, and somehow tasted kind of like peanut butter, if peanut butter had been freeze-dried by aliens. But we didn't care. If astronauts ate them, we wanted in. For a generation hooked on rockets and moon landings, those snacks felt like edible proof that anything was possible. Snack time fun, Jiffy Pop popcorn. Do you remember the excitement of watching a silver-foiled dome puff up like a balloon on the stovetop? Jiffy Pop wasn't just popcorn, it was a full-blown performance. Invented in 1958 by Frederick Menon, this clever, self-contained pan made snack time feel like science class meets magic show. You'd hear the first kernel pop, then a rising sizzle, and before long, the pan would swell into a golden crown of anticipation. With a little shake of the handle and a lot of patience, the reward was buttery, slightly smoky popcorn that somehow tasted better because you made it yourself. In a time before microwaves, Jiffy Pop turned a simple treat into a shared experience. And that's what made it unforgettable. Dinner table, staple, Jell-O molds. Every family had that one aunt who treated Jell-O like a blank canvas, and the results were unforgettable. In the 1960s, gelatin molds took over American dinner tables, becoming both a visual centerpiece and a conversation starter. Kids held their breath as the dome-shaped masterpiece jiggled onto the plate, half delighted, half terrified. Beneath the fruity surface lurked a surprise: shredded carrots, marshmallows, tuna, even olives. Brands like Jell-O pushed the limits with flavors like celery and Italian salad, encouraging creative home cooks to turn gelatin into a savory experience. While we may have quietly scooted it to the edge of our plates, deep down, we knew this wobbly concoction was made with care, and it meant we were gathered together for something that mattered. Reading material, Boy's Life magazine. If you had muddy knees and a pocket knife, chances are you had a copy of Boy's Life rolled up in your back pocket. First published in 1911 and officially adopted by the Boy Scouts of America, Boy's Life wasn't just a magazine. It was a monthly passport to adventure. Each issue delivered a mix of how-to tips, wilderness survival stories, jokes, comics, and gear ads that could make any scout's heart race. In the 1960s, it felt like a badge of honor just to have a subscription. You'd read it cover to cover, then trade it with your buddy like it was top secret intel. And whether you were actually in Scouts or just dreamed of sleeping under the stars, Boy's Life made you believe you were ready for anything. Everywhere you looked, Good Luck Trolls. The Good Luck Trolls, created in 1959 by Danish woodcarver Thomas Dam as a gift for his daughter, weren't just toys, they were tiny talismans of joy. Originally hand-carved from wood and topped with woolen hair, they exploded in popularity in the early 60s. By 1964, demand was so high that Dam reportedly bought up the entire wool harvest of Iceland. Kids believed that rubbing their neon hair brought good fortune, and honestly, we didn't question it. From toy shelves to lunchbox lids, they were everywhere, and for a few shining years, nothing said cool quite like a troll with pink hair and a belly-button gem. A glimpse of the future, the Jetsons in color. What did your idea of the future look like as a kid? For many of us growing up in the early 60s, it had flying cars, robot maids, and dinner cooked at the push of a button, all thanks to the Jetsons. Premiering on ABC in 1962, it was among the first shows broadcast in color, which made its futuristic world even more dazzling. Though the original run lasted only 24 episodes, the impact was long-lasting. We weren't just watching a cartoon, we were dreaming out loud. The Jetsons imagined a life of convenience, technology, and wonder, years before personal computers or smartphones. For a generation raised on rotary phones and black and white sets, it was a bright, bouncing glimpse of what just might be possible. DIY repairs, TV tube testers. Saturday mornings had a rhythm: cartoons, cornflakes, and a trip to the drugstore with Dad to test TV tubes. Long before flat screens and HDMI cables, television sets ran on vacuum tubes, and when the picture went fuzzy or sound cut out, chances were a tube had gone bad. Every corner pharmacy seemed to have a self-serve tester tucked near the photo counter, where you'd plug each glass cylinder into the machine, watching anxiously for the needle to move. I remember holding a worn paper bag of tubes while Dad made small talk with the pharmacist. It felt like a mission, grown up and technical. And if we found the bad one, it meant one thing: we'd be home in time to catch the Sunday night movie, picture sharp and sound clear as ever. What's one memory from your childhood that still makes you smile today? Novelty pets, sea monkeys. Who knew a plastic packet of powder could unlock an entire underwater civilization? Sea monkeys weren't just pets, they were an event. Dreamed up by Harold von Braunhut in 1957, these brine shrimp were marketed as magical creatures that came to life with a splash of water. Their comic book ads, drawn by Joe Orlando, promised kingdoms beneath the glass, complete with smiling, bubble-headed families. What kids actually got was a science experiment in a fishbowl, but that didn't matter. Watching those little specks wiggle to life was pure wonder. Some even made it to space in 1998 with astronaut John Glenn. They were weird, wonderful, and totally unforgettable. Part biology, part fantasy, and 100% 1960s magic in a plastic tank. Do you think kids today are missing out on something we had back then? Catching a wave, surfer music. Sunlight, salt air, and the twang of a reverb-soaked guitar. Surfer music was more than a sound. It was a whole state of mind. It started with the ferocious picking of Dick Dale, the so-called king of the surf guitar, whose 1961 hit "Let's Go Trippin' sent a tidal wave through youth culture. Then came the vocal harmonies of the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean, whose sunny lyrics turned West Coast beaches into a national dreamscape. These songs weren't just catchy, they mirrored the thrill of carving waves, the freedom of endless summers. And for kids far from the ocean, they offered a taste of California magic through a transistor radio, sparking daydreams that stretched as far as the Pacific horizon. Classic games. Jacks. A small rubber ball and a handful of jacks could turn any front porch or schoolyard into an arena of childhood triumph. By the 1960s, this ancient game, once played with bones by Greek and Roman kids, had evolved into a pocket-sized pastime with shiny metal pieces and a bounce that set the stage for hours of fun. Whether it was onesies or eightsies, each round tested your rhythm and reflexes, and sometimes even your patience. I still remember my sister's victory dance every time she swept the board clean without missing a beat. In a decade racing toward the future, jacks remained a simple, joyful link to the timeless pleasures of play. Bouncing fun. Wham-o. Super balls. What toy could bounce like a rocket and vanish faster than your allowance? The Wham-o Super Ball, of course. A black, rubbery marvel that seemed to defy gravity and common sense. Made from a synthetic compound called Zectron, it wasn't just a ball. It was a launch pad for giggles, scraped knees, and wild backyard chases. You'd slam it to the pavement and it'd take off like it had a mind of its own, sometimes sailing over rooftops. Even grown-ups were mesmerized. Legend has it that a Super Ball inspired the name Super Bowl. In a time before video games, this bouncing wonder gave kids something priceless: unpredictable joy and endless motion. Iconic hairstyles, the beehive. Big hair didn't just mean big style, it meant you were ready to take on the world, one teasing comb at a time. The beehive was the crown jewel of 1960s fashion, towering with pride atop the heads of stylish women everywhere. With every spritz of Aquanet and carefully placed pin, the do transformed ordinary mornings into red carpet routines. From diners to dance halls, that conical swirl commanded attention, and for good reason. Popularized by stars like Dusty Springfield and Audrey Hepburn, the beehive wasn't just a hairstyle, it was a statement. Even moms at the grocery store looked like they might be on their way to Hollywood. It was bold, beautiful, and, if you were lucky, held up for days. Iconic games and toys, Twister, Hot Wheels, and more. Laughter echoed louder when Twister came out at a party. It didn't matter if you were 8 or 18. Once someone spun the dial, the living room became a mess of elbows, socks, and awkward giggles. Introduced by Milton Bradley in 1966, Twister was one of the first games to make physical closeness part of the fun. Meanwhile, kids obsessed with speed turned to Hot Wheels, which roared onto the scene in 1968 with metallic paint jobs and snapped-together racetracks. And of course, shelves overflowed with Barbies, G.I. Joes, and astronaut figurines inspired by NASA's lunar missions. These weren't just toys, they were fuel for big dreams, small victories, and memories that never got boxed up and forgotten. Roadside dining, Howard Johnson's. Was it really a road trip if you didn't beg your parents to pull over at that bright orange roof? For millions of families cruising down America's highways in the 50s and 60s, Howard Johnson's was more than just a pit stop. It was part of the journey. Known for its promise of consistency, the restaurants boasted 28 flavors of ice cream, cheerful uniforms, and legendary fried clams that somehow tasted even better when eaten in a vinyl booth. The cupola-topped roofs and turquoise signs were like beacons for hungry travelers. And let's be honest, if you scored a cone after dinner, you knew it had been a good day. In a changing world, Hojo's felt like a roadside promise that never let you down. Freedom on wheels, the Schwinn Stingray. Nothing felt quite like that first ride around the block with the wind in your face and no parents in sight. In the mid-1960s, the Schwinn Stingray wasn't just a bicycle, it was a rite of passage. With its banana seat, tall, ape-hanger handlebars, and muscle car swagger, it looked like it belonged on a drag strip more than a sidewalk. Designed in 1963 by Al Fritz, the Stingray was inspired by California kids who had started customizing their bikes to look like motorcycles. Suddenly, every kid on the block wanted one. I still remember the thrill of finally getting mine: metallic blue, white grips, and a sissy bar that scraped the driveway. That bike didn't just get me places, it made me feel unstoppable. Rolling along, roller skating adventures. You haven't truly known danger until you've gone downhill on metal roller skates strapped to your sneakers with a belt buckle. Back in the 60s, skating wasn't just a hobby, it was a rite of passage. We clattered down sidewalks in skates that rattled like shopping carts, barely held in place by thin leather straps. But we didn't care. The freedom was worth every scraped knee. Those skates, modeled after James Plimpton's 1863 quad-wheel invention, were a bit clunky, but brilliant in design. You could adjust them as your feet grew. And while skating rinks were starting to pop up, the real thrill was in the neighborhood. Dodging pebbles, racing your friends, and hoping the wheels didn't fly off mid-turn. The nightly news, Vietnam, and Walter Cronkite. What happens when the most trusted voice in America says the war may not be winnable? In February 1968, After visiting Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, CBS anchor Walter Cronkite broke from his usual even tone. In a nationally broadcast report, he looked into the camera and called the conflict a stalemate. For many families, mine included, who gathered nightly around the television, it was a turning point. Cronkite wasn't just reporting, he was reflecting the growing doubts in our living rooms. President Johnson reportedly said, "If I've lost Cronkite, I've lost Middle America." That moment reshaped public opinion and showed just how powerful the nightly news had become, not only in informing the public, but in guiding the national conscience. Love taking a trip back in time? Hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and we'll keep the nostalgia coming. Kitchen creations, the Easy Bake Oven. When Kenner introduced the Easy Bake Oven in 1963, it wasn't just a toy, it was a miniature dream kitchen powered by two 100-watt bulbs and a child's imagination. With its pastel-colored body and slide-through bake pans, it let kids whip up cookies, brownies, and cupcakes all by themselves. I still remember my little sister proudly offering me her first from-scratch vanilla cake, slightly underbaked, but made with joy. The Easy Bake wasn't about perfection. It was about independence, creativity, and a small, warm glimpse into the grown-up world of the kitchen. And for many of us, it was the first time we felt like real chefs. Beatlemania arrives in America. Was there ever a louder scream than the one that erupted when four lads from Liverpool stepped off that plane at JFK? In 1964, America didn't just welcome the Beatles, we practically lost our minds. I remember watching them on The Ed Sullivan Show, sitting on the carpet with a soda in hand while my sister shrieked like she'd just seen Elvis and Superman rolled into one. Their mop-top haircuts, pointy boots, and collarless suits didn't just start a fashion trend, they sparked a revolution. Beatlemania wasn't just a fad, it was a full-on cultural tidal wave. And for kids across the country, it felt like the future had arrived, clutching a guitar and singing in perfect harmony. Sunday night tradition, Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. Some memories don't come in black and white. They arrive in full color, just like Sunday nights with Walt. Back then, Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color wasn't just a TV show, it was a portal. As soon as that swirling rainbow intro played on NBC, our living room transformed. I'd sit shoulder to shoulder with my siblings on the floor, still in church clothes, while Dad fiddled with the antenna for a clearer picture. Walt's calm voice would carry us off into stories that mixed animation, real-life wonder, and even glimpses behind Disneyland's curtain. It was wholesome, imaginative, and for many families like mine, the 1 hour a week that felt like pure magic. Must-see TV, American Bandstand and dance crazes. There was a rhythm to life back then, and on Saturday afternoons, it came straight from our living room TV. American Bandstand, with Dick Clark's smooth voice and easy charm, was more than a show. It was the pulse of a generation. Week after week, teens across the country watched new stars take the stage. Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, Sonny and Cher, and learned the latest dance crazes sweeping the nation. From the twist to the mashed potato, every move felt like a shared language, and every beat a reason to get off the couch. Bandstand didn't just showcase music, it connected us, shaped our style, and turned an ordinary afternoon into something unforgettable. Exploring new frontiers, Star Trek. The stars felt closer on nights when the Enterprise was on the screen. Back in 1966, Star Trek didn't just show us alien worlds, it gave us a glimpse of who we could become. A future without prejudice. A crew that looked like the world we wished we lived in. I still remember watching with my uncle, a Vietnam vet, who rarely smiled at the TV. Except when Spock raised an eyebrow, or Scotty saved the ship. At a time when conflict filled the headlines, this quiet, thoughtful show dared to speak of peace, reason, and unity. It wasn't just science fiction. It was a lesson in humanity, broadcast one episode at a time. Classic childhood moments. Back when sunscreen was optional and drinking from the garden hose was totally acceptable, life just felt easier. We didn't need much, just our banana bikes, a patch of pavement, and a friend who didn't mind racing you downhill with no hands. I still remember one summer afternoon in '67 when Tommy dared me to ride with my eyes closed. We both ended up in Mrs. Parker's rose bushes. Those moments defined childhood in the '60s. Days were long, summers seemed endless, and our station wagons doubled as rocket ships on dusty back roads. Even with the noise of the world around us, there was still space for wonder. And nothing captured that spirit more than staring up at the sky, dreaming about the moon. Classic toys, Rock'em Sock'em and Major Matt Mason. Ever wonder why some childhood toys never really left our memories? Back in the late '60s, few things sparked more excitement than those clunky little boxing bots, Rock'em Sock'em robots. My cousin Jake and I would spend hours trying to knock each other's robot's head clean off, shouting "Gotcha!" before slamming the reset button. Designed by Marvin Glass and released by Marx in 1964, it was simple, loud, and endlessly satisfying. And if you were dreaming of space instead of slugfests, Major Matt Mason from Mattel had you covered. Based on real NASA tech, he bent at the knees, until those wire joints wore out, of course. Still, for a generation, growing up on moon landings and comic books, these toys were more than plastic. They were pure imagination. What's one thing from the 1960s you wish we could bring back today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If these memories warmed your heart or brought a smile to your face, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more nostalgic journeys. What's your favorite '50s memory? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.